my first day at Chance's case. You know, the music industry is an inherently exploitative structure, and it seems like Chance's former manager, Pat, is seeking to carry on that exploitation of the intellectual property of artists and making assumptions based on no written contract that he should own things for a prolonged period of time. But there's nothing on paper. I don't see how that claim has any validity to it. They've been citing a book called Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business by Donald Passman to say why Pat should be receiving 30% of gross income. But that book doesn't even say that. That book says that in absence of a contract between a manager and an artist in a handshake agreement, there is no protection. And what else do I think about this? Man, I think, we're in a time when mainstream America is very presently aware that the music industry has all the cards stacked against artists. You see legislation being passed to make streaming revenue more fair for artists. Pat's on the wrong side of history. He's on the wrong side of this fight in overreaching, claiming ownership over Chance's IP. The reason...
So this is Vic Mesa. He's a friend of Chance the Rapper who's in a lawsuit with against his former manager. His former manager wants basically ownership of some of his IP, wants more money from him. But the thing about this, the main important thing is there's no contract. So the manager feel like he's owed something, and Chance said he's not owed anything because I've already paid you. We've experienced the success, but the manager still wants to own, I believe, that early piece of body of work with one of his really good albums for a long time so he can continue to get some of that revenue. Always comes down to money. This is why it's the most important thing. And when you're doing business, doesn't matter if that's your friend, doesn't matter if that girlfriend, parents, you have to have a contract. Because if you don't have a contract, now we're going to be spending money on lawsuits. What we see in the music industry, and the one thing I don't understand is why do people do the music industry when you know it's a big scam? Everybody's trying to make money off you in the music industry. So what is the point of getting into the music industry, especially if you don't have any money to do music? Because if you got to do music and you want to do music, you have no money, you're bound to get screwed. What we see in the music industry, there's a lot of vultures. There's a lot of people that want your money. They want to tie you up in these long-term deals, basically own all your IP, and then they give you an advance that it's going to take you forever to pay back, and then they'll give you another advance that can, further and further put you in debt. So what is the point of being a artist anymore? I think the only time you could be an artist and really do something, do some damage, is when you have your own money and you take your time in being successful. I think a lot of people get stuck as far as being an artist. It's because they want to be successful fast. That's where the labels win. That's where the managers win. That's where everybody wins. It's because they know you're impatient, so you're willing to take any deal just to be on that stage. Success takes a long time. You see a lot of successful people that are in the game that's done it slowly, but they own all of their stuff, own all that IP. They own all of their masters and stuff like that, publishing. But the people that don't own their stuff are the people that are impatient. But going back to Chance thing is one of those things is you got to have a contract. Because now it's up to the courts to decide your fate. You have somebody that feel like they're still entitled to 30% of your earnings off of that body of work. The court might say yes. That's why you got to have a contract, a clear cut contract, because now everybody knows what's going on. Maybe they had a falling out. Maybe he just didn't want to be his manager anymore, and now the manager feels a certain type of way, but they still feel like they're entitled of the money. This is what happens when you're working with people and then the money stops. They're willing to do anything they can to keep the money going. The root of all evil and good is one thing: money. So now what we see, it could be a possibility of greed. But I just don't understand why people, especially now, the way you see things happening, what is the point of being an artist? Are you really making money? How much money are you making? Or do you have ownership? What is the play? Do you get into the business with no money and just thug it? But not a lot of people can do that because they want to be a star overnight. So I think that's how these record labels and these managers and these people get these artists and get them trapped, is because they're impatient. They're not willing to just put the work in and be found. They need a machine behind them, but it's a cost to that machine. And it's typically something that's worth all of your body of work. But it's crazy though.
We're here. is because of what Chance wrote on paper, what he said into that microphone. Like that has touched our hearts, that's touched our souls, that's changed our lives. Now, the Pat has played a role, but it's menial compared to Chance's contribution here. Like, we love what he has created as an artist. The business, the independent narrative is all supplementary. But the reason we're here is because of what Chance wrote and what he spit on that microphone. And we feel that. It's not because of what Pat did as a businessman. And he didn't have a contract. He made millions. He got money. This all seems like a hit piece against Chance to me. It seems like a way to drag and denigrate Chance's character. To constantly try to point to the success of some projects and what is perceived as lesser success of other projects, which in and of itself just feels it's disingenuous. You know what I mean? It's not the first time Pat's been suing an artist that he worked with. Seems like a pattern of an assumed right to domination. That's what we see throughout the history of the music industry, is an assumed right to the domination and ownership of the intellectual property of these artists, as if it's not enough to break your bread and make money with them while you guys are in relationship.
Yeah, I think as a manager, you're not the one being an artist. You're not the one going out there, right? But managers do play a role. Managers set things up, get the contracts right, put you in certain opportunities. So you can't downplay the manager's role in Chance the Rapper's success. You can't, because he did things on the business end that Chance couldn't do and didn't need to do because Chance is focusing on the music, right? But we have to understand this. Chance can make songs every single day. The manager can't. So it's more imperative for the manager to always be in control or have a piece of that IP so he can continue to make money now, tomorrow, and in the future. Whereas Chance can come out with an album tomorrow and make money. That manager can't. So you have to look at it on both sides. This is the reason why you have contracts. So we can say that, well, Chance the Rapper could be right, but he did one thing wrong. He didn't have a contract. We could say same thing about the manager, right? Why wasn't there a contract? They were friends, probably. They were cool. They were like, bro, we're going to be together forever. But people change, especially when money gets involved. Success doesn't happen. He had success in his early album, but in his albums after that, it was okay. Maybe there was a rift from that. Maybe it was a different point of view, different change of direction, and they split. But then, what about the contract? What about the money what about the things that, how do I get rewarded for making sure that you had that successful album? How do I get taken care of for the rest of my life? What we see about the music industry is about, we see in everything in life. It's about ownership. Ownership. The reason why you got these big record companies and labels, and the reason why they're around forever is because they own IP, they own masters, they own music. They have a piece of everything so they can make money now, tomorrow, and in the future. And I believe that's where Chance messed up. He did not have a contract. Especially if you knew about the industry, especially if you have friends maybe like this guy, they should have been educating him and said, hey, bro, get a contract. Somebody in Chance's circle should have said, hey, you and the manager, while everything's good, get a contract. Because now everything's clear, because you see in the music industry, breakups happen. You see, successful groups all of them become singles, right? It happens, but you have to have that contract so where everybody has a pure understanding of what's going on. But I believe that what's probably going to happen is that his former manager is going to get rewarded something, because if he had success with this album and the manager was on it, and then the other albums he didn't have success, they're going to put him as one of the reasons why he had success. That's just the way the law works, and that's the reason why you got to have contracts. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. As always, going to keep the thing right, keep it going. Thank you for tapping into the No Filter Morning Show Monday through Friday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I appreciate you guys. We'll keep this thing rolling, keep it rocking. I appreciate you guys, and I'm out.